thank our witnesses for joining us today. Mr. Driscoll, I appreciate you pointing out the importance of met coal, as you talked about, metallurgical coal, the supply of carbon that's needed for steel production. We know how incredibly important that is as we talk about supply chain today, about us being reliant on other countries for things like steel. We know the whole debate about tariffs on steel. We know that steel here in the United States is needed from anything from refrigerators to aircraft carriers. That's a fundamental element of why coal production here in the United States is important. And any effort to reduce coal production creates, I think, both a strategic and economic challenge for the United States to make sure we can sustain critical production of things like steel. The last thing we want to do is to continue to be reliant on China for increasing amounts of steel. In your testimony, you talked about met coal accounts for about 70% of the global steel market. We also know, too, that China leads the effort in coal production, but also that United States and Australia are number 1 and 2 as far as coal exportation, and that China imports about 24% of their coal, again, because they want to lead in production of steel to build their economy, but also what they're doing to build their military. Can you give us your perspective on what happens if we continue to fail to promote met coal production here in the U.S. for the U.S. domestic steel industry? Where does that leave us as far as being self-sustaining, but also just doing the fundamental things for our U.S. economy and for our nation's defense? I just want to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a shipping person, right? So,
yes.
My perspective is, if you increase the reliability on foreign supplies, it reduces your options to import or to manufacture. So I think it's very important to have both. I think the business we're in is the importation of international cargo and the exportation of U.S. supplied raw materials and finished goods. So I think a balance is required in this regard, and I think we need to keep our eye on the fact that we have to continue to have a robust economy that supports the steel industry, and met coal is one of the resources that enables us to do that domestically and globally.
I appreciate you pointing out how fundamental met coal production is to steel production in the United States, and we know what happens with China. They dump massive amounts of steel on the open market, depress prices, create challenges for U.S. steel production to continue to maintain. Give me your perspective. You spoke a little bit about it. Give me your perspective on how reduction in total coal production here, including met coal, exacerbates that issue of China dumping massive amounts of steel on the market that already challenges the U.S. steel industry. And now as we talk about sourcing, as we talk about the idea of being able to have for your production from the source of that raw material to the actual end consumer, where any interruption to that creates problems for our country. Give us your perspective on what impact that has.
Yeah, I think if you reduce this high-quality, low-sulfur coal, met coal that we produce in Alabama and in other places around the country, it will force them to go to other sources of met coal that are not as high-quality, high-grade. And you had to produce more of that. You'd have even more pollution that would be the result of that. Again, I'm not a scientist, sure, but that is my impression of what would happen. So I think that's why it's very important to keep the supply of met coal for the U.S. and for foreign, because we do have a good type of product that we supply.
And what's been done with tariffs on steel, which we know has at least tried to level the playing field between the United States and China. Even in that particular situation, if we have a reduction in met coal production here, what does that do overall for U.S. steel production, even in face of where tariffs are today?
It would probably reduce the coal production.
Mm-hmm. And our current steel mills are reliant upon the coal produced here in the United States for coke production, which is critical for the production of high-quality steel. Can you give us a little bit of metallurgy about what role coal plays in the production of steel, especially the high-quality steel that we need here for our economy?
Metallurgical coal is what they call coking coal.
Yes.
So it's a process that is a chemical, it's just the chemical makeup of this particular type of coal, metallurgical coal. So it has the fundamental flows and things associated with what you need to be able to produce steel with the iron ore that's introduced into the vat. So I think that would be the answer.
And we have the highest quality coking steel of any place in the world right here in the United States.
I think so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.